Point me to someone making their dream game and I'll point you to a fool. This is the lesson that I've been spending the last 20 years of my life trying to learn. When I was the ripe age of 16, with only 2 years of coding experience under my belt, I started to build my dream game at the time, a 2D MMORPG. Yeah, that's right, I did it. Now, to be fair, I was able to release a build and get a few clients to connect to the server, and we were able to play. Kinda. You see, I was in way over my head trying to conceptualize how servers worked back at that time. And at some point, I realized the scope was way too big, and so I threw away all the work that I've done on it, and I moved on. Fast forward to shortly after learning Unity. I start my newest dream game, which was a large open world RPG that played like Grand Theft Auto in a Dragon Ball Z-like world. I had the whole world mapped out, had the story beats planned, the whole shebang. But at some point, I realized the scope was too big, and so once again, I threw away all the work that I've done on it and moved on. Walking away from this, I learned my lesson, and so what I decided to make next was yet another dream game. This was a massive RTS living world, kind of merging The Sims with Fallout-like consequences, where every character is simulated, and all actions, whether it made by you or AI agents, would have an impact on the world. But yet again, I realized the scope was way too big, and I throw away the work that I've done on it and move on. Now, why am I sharing all this? Because 20 years later in 2024, I am once again creating my latest dream game, which is a shonen anime battle simulator with enough freedom to make you both feel as powerful as Goku, but also are able to make full-on anime episodes from the replays. But you wanna know what's different about this dream game attempt? Scope. I've learned how to scope. Learning scope is the one and only way you can finish your dream games. This version of the game that I gave you is the game I wish I could play. But at the same time, I don't expect Ultra Bouters to become that version for probably another 4 years from now. But instead of going into a cave and developing this game for 4 years and then releasing it, I am chunking this dream into many pieces and working my way towards the end goal, all the while getting feedback along the way. Sort of helping the project land somewhere between where my dream is and what you'd actually like to play. But the real secret is, there are no limits to this. In a few weeks, I'm about to launch the Ultra Bouters MVP, which, by the way, what better way to show that you were there before it was cool than to wear an exclusive pre-launch party hat, which you can only get if you go pre-register Ultra Bouters on Google Play. Don't miss the boat, but like I was saying, and then I'm going to give it as many updates as possible for who knows how long. But it might hit a point where my vision has to be carried over into a sequel for Ultra Bouters. Please, let me repeat, learning scope is the one and only way you can finish your dream games. But the reason why I'm making this video today is because I've kind of lost sight of this over the past few weeks, and I need to find my way back. Let me explain. Going into Ultra Bouters, I've always had a MVP in mind, meaning creating a small slice of the game to present to the world for critique, with the promise of what it could become. But in the process of making this small slice, I think I've got a little too ambitious. Today, I want to show you all the ambitious aspects that I'm cutting to make my MVP actually launchable. But without further ado, let's talk about it. Alright, so first up is tutorials. Now, if I go into Unity really quick and I enable the tutorials button, you can get an idea of what I was thinking here for tutorials. There's relic snatching, switching styles, movement tutorial, jumping tutorial, blocking tutorial, attacking tutorial. These are like some rough ideas that I was thinking about adding for the MVP, but I just don't have a lot of time and I don't know how much value it's going to add to adding tutorials this early when I don't know how many people are going to play the MVP. Not to mention, I'm not entirely sure, you know, what people are having trouble with. So I might spend all this time making a movement tutorial, right? It might cost me 3-4 whole days to make a movement tutorial, and it's quite intuitive on people's first play, you know. So yeah, this is something that's getting scrapped for the MVP, unfortunately, but it will for sure make its way in when I get a better sense of like what people need help understanding with the game. So next up that is getting scrapped is the free fall style. So I had this thing where you would jump up and it's a new style. You would transition to the free fall style. And then from the free fall style, there were a bunch of different moves that you can do, like classic Street Fighter spinny kick and, a dive kick and stuff like that. As much as I would love for it to be an MVP, it just, the time, the jumping is a little more complex than the regular actions. And, I could spend a whole 2 weeks trying to perfect it and whatnot, or I can just scrap it for the MVP and add it in a later update, which I'm planning to do. Jumping is very essential, so it's still in the game. You just can't do any jumping attacks but that will be coming. Look at that charge jump. Look at that charge jump. Nice. All right, so next, I'm not even sure why I'm talking about this, because I'm unsure at the moment if this feature is even going to make it in the game proper or not. But I was flirting with this concept called launching, which if I go to the brawl style, you can see that all of the offensive actions, they have an icon associated with them, and the game is still early. I'm going to discuss this as if it is final, but it might not be. Okay, so bear with me. The Band-Aid logo here, this is hurt. The electricity is stagger, and then it's a person sitting is knockdown. And I was thinking about adding one more, which is launching, and the concept behind it is a hurt. The opponent is unfazed; they don't react to it at all. Stagger, they actually react to it, but they react in place. And then knockdown, they actually fall to the ground, and that gives you time to go and snatch their relic. And they all have different fatigues associated with it, but that's a conversation for another day. But the final one was going to be a launching, where you did an attack and it would like launch your opponent like far away. But as I started to think about it, like it's part of the dream to do it, but it doesn't make sense in the current design of the game. So launching is going bye-bye for the MVP, which I'm glad that it is, because it helps keep me in scope to ship something instead of spending weeks on end trying to figure out how to make this feature work with the current design of the game. So say goodbye to launching. Will it return? Who knows? I don't know. Now, the last and final thing, at least of the big stuff that's getting scrapped for the MVP, if you take a look at the game, there's something clearly missing here. It's probably not obvious when you first look at it, but there's no way to really read the timeline. You know, you don't know how many more frames until you're free, or how many more frames till your opponent's free. And it was a concept that in the concept art, it's very clear up here at the top. But when I start to implement this concept, at least, it didn't really make a lot of sense. And I felt like it needed a huge overhaul, which I just don't have the time to invest in redesigning it and figuring out how to make it all work proper. So unfortunately for the MVP, we're just gonna scrap it, and we're gonna revisit it in the next update in the future, and it's gonna save me so much more time. And the most important part is that scrapping all of these features, it allows for me to get feedback on what's really important, which is how fun is the game. You know, a lot of these features that are getting scrapped, they help with the game's communications. A couple of them are potentially like more advanced features, but I feel pretty good at what I have at this moment is a good vertical slice. It's a good minimal viable product to put in someone's hand and just say like, hey, what do you feel about this? This is where I want to take it, but how do you feel about this that's in your hand right now? You know, and people tell me if it sucks, or they'll tell me if they're into it, or they'll tell me if they like where it's headed, you know, and then we can just build off of that. But hopefully you enjoyed this Ultra Bouters devlog. Hopefully it was a little insightful. Hopefully you learned a lot. Hopefully you got you a little more excited about Ultra Bouters coming soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.